in because we have a busy day. I'm Kat Trago. I am the president of the Wisconsin chapter, and welcome to part 2 of our 4-part series discussing how emojis are affecting e-discovery from a number of points of view. If you are interested in sharing the website for registration, you can access our website. We have a full website. It's got materials on it. It's got recordings we will be recording today, but it will have all the recordings on it. It will have information you might need for CLE, etc. All of the information, the videos from today's presentation will also, from our presenters will also be listed there. That you can find if you go to the wisconsin.aceds.org website. For anyone who wasn't able to join last month, we introduced the topic with a CLE from Eric Parrish, and that was recorded. It's also available on that website, along with the deck, the cases, the links in, and anybody who is still waiting CLE, there is going to be a contact information. There's a little bit of a hiccup on that, but we're working on it. So you will get CLE if you attended live. Finally, I just want to mention that next month, we're excited to have Kelly Twigger moderating with a discussion with 2 judges, Judge Xavier Rodriguez of the Western District of Texas, and also Judge William Matthewman of the Southern District of Florida. And they will be discussing how emojis, what they're seeing in their courtrooms. And that's on November 10th, also at 11 Central. So please register if you haven't already. Again, wisconsin.aceds.org will get you to our website. And from there, I just want to introduce Angela Shapiro. She's a shareholder at Butzel, and she's done the heavy lifting along with the Detroit chapter on this. I want to just take a moment to publicly thank Angela and give her the opportunity to introduce the challenge and our participating vendors. So Angela, take it away.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you. Okay, so I'm getting feedback here. Are you hearing that as well? No. Okay. First, I want to say a big thank you to Conduit, who volunteered their services to collect and process the data that's being used by the vendors for today's vendor challenge. I also want to thank the vendors who are participating today, Reveal, TCDI, and Downstream. You'll hear more from each of them in a bit. Throughout the session today, please feel free to submit questions. You'll see that down at the bottom, the question and answer option. If there's time, we will turn to those at the end. If there's not time, we'll compile the questions and post answers from the vendors on the website that Kat mentioned a bit ago, where other materials from the series will be as well. You'll also find vendor videos there highlighting emoji challenges and software solutions for later reference, including videos from Reveal, TCDI, and Downstream, our vendors participating in today's challenge. We have a full schedule, so I'll jump right in with a short overview of the challenge that our 3 vendors are here to meet. Widgets Are Us is facing sexual harassment claims brought by a recent hire, Sally Brown. When they learned of Sally's claim, the company's legal and IT departments rolled out a litigation hold and collected potentially relevant emails and chats from the work accounts of Sally Brown, the employee claiming harassment, as well as the work and personal email and chat accounts of Randall Lionel, the alleged harasser, and Bruce Bridgerton, Sally and Randall's supervisor. Randall is known to be an emoji aficionado, so his emails and chats, at least, will likely include emojis that are relevant to the substantive issues underlying this project. This presents a new challenge for Widgets Are Us. Reveal, TCDI, and Downstream were sent a sample of the collected data and are going to demonstrate how their proprietary software can help Widgets Are Us effectively handle emojis in this case and others. With that, I'll turn this over to our first vendor who is participating in the challenge, Reveal.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you, Angela. Thank you for allowing us to participate. I'm Patrick Bilger. I'm with Reveal, and I am also bringing with me to this discussion Dr. Irina Mativa. She's our chief data scientist and head of machine learning. So she's going to be joining as we talk about this challenge of dealing with emojis. And so we're really excited to participate. And this is obviously something that we are looking very seriously at attacking and trying to solve as a problem in e-discovery. And Irina is going to talk a little bit about that on how how we're looking to do that. So before I begin, Irina, did you want to add anything, or do you want me to go ahead and?
No, I would say just go ahead. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone.
All right, great, thank you. So we took the perspective that so as Angela mentioned, we took some of the data. Data was provided to us. It was a small amount, so we went and added a few more documents just to round out the data set to give it a little bit more perspective on this. So I put on the hat that I'm at outside counsel for Widgets Are Us, and so we're doing first some investigating and then potentially production as we prepare for what could be a litigation in the sexual harassment matter. So I'm showing you our newest version, which is Reveal version 11, and some of the analytics and things that we could use around that. So the first, let me switch to dark mode. So this is the data set. I can do some, so I'm coming in as if I'm an administrator, I might come in and do some analysis before submitting out to the reviewers. So, again, there's only 4,000 documents in this set. Any of these I can, let's say I want to just focus on this year or certain aspects of the data itself. If I scroll down, but I decided to start on, since this is a sexual harassment case, I decided to leverage some of our AI models to get a jump start on my investigation. So you can see some down here that we have a model for sexually explicit comments, insulting and vulgar behavior, comments on appearance. Those are all separate models, or you can combine these, or what we call stack them, into one model. So I created a sexual harassment model, which is basically a combination of these three. And so they're very easy to set up. As I come in here, so for example, my sexual harassment model, I created it using comments on appearance, insulting and vulgar behavior, and sexually explicit comments. And then I applied that without, of course, doing any sort of review in order to get the high scoring documents that might be potentially harmful for our client, in this case, Widgets Are Us. So I could easily score for the high value. So I would say I wanted to get all of the documents at a high score. In this case, it's a 50 to 74. Let me increase that to 50 to 100, just to, again, set a broad net and run a search. So 1,900 documents potentially that could have a high score that might, for potentially sexual harassment, right? And so what I might do, if I'm running this, I might send this out to my reviewers and get them started tagging documents, finding ones that could be potentially hot or damaging to our company. So I would go up into this AI-driven batches area, and I might use this hot doc classifier that I created and have the reviewers start tagging documents that were potentially hot or bad for us, right? So I could say, use this AI-driven queue, which basically helps train a model, and it feeds the documents that will help train it more effectively and efficiently. And so I would select that and then send that out to my reviewers. So now my reviewers can get started on this 1,900 documents, training the model, finding those hot documents, bubbling up what potentially is relevant in this case. So now, since this particular challenge is around emojis, let's assume that, yes, our reviewers have come across some emojis that are potentially damaging, or so they came, oh, hey, there's some that are bad. Another way that I can, in this data set, I could run an advanced search, and we have this condition called has emojis. So I want to find all the documents that have emojis. So I would say, let's find, there's 147 in this particular data set. It's interesting that there were some emoji data in Enron, which was fun. But I could focus in and just find all the documents that potentially have emojis. But let's say I wanted to find those documents that have emojis and have a high score for one of these models, right? So let's say sexual harassment, high score for that. And so here's one, the very first one. Let's take a look at this one and see. Oh, this looks like a damaging email from Bruce to Randall, the one that we think might be a percent, or vice versa from, and it says, I meant to use my personal account. And so then there's a little emoji here, right? It's like, dude, I know she was hot, but you have to keep your hands to yourself. Uh-oh, could be bad. So I'm going to tag this as hot. I'm going to tag it as responsive, not privileged, because I'm going to potentially have to produce this document. Let's save. All right. So that's one way. Another way that we might attack this is if, let's say, and I'm going to use my age here. I'm a little old. I'm finding out that emojis don't always mean what I think they mean, and I don't know kind of what I'm looking for. So I went out to this public website that said some definitions about what emojis are. And I'm hearing from the reviewers that, there's certain emojis in here. So let's look at this one, face with tears of joy. I'm going to search on this. So I'm going to just copy this. I'll go into back into my review. And I'm just going to use that emoji. I'm going to say, give me, and we have this ability to search around concepts. So I'm going to search around the concepts of this crying face emoji. And I can explore what might be potentially, around this. So I have, you can see there, but I have all of these other concepts that might be related. There's what's butter me up, and it has to do with that. What's that, right? So that could potentially be damaging or harmful in this case. So let's go ahead and make that required. Add to my search. I can also do what's called a brain explorer, would allow me to go in and drill in further. So there's butter me up. So I want a visual cue and why is this brought in? I can start looking at other concepts that are related. So excited, really looking forward to favor. What's that? What's favor? Let's get long time seniority. Uh-oh, we might have trouble here, right? So I'm going to do a search. So I'm running around this concept, run this search, and let's look at this first document. So you can see here, and we've highlighted the words that are conceptually similar to this. So that was in that search, right? So there's the emoji, and oh yeah, here's the email from Randy to Sally Brown. Was it Sally Brown? Saying, hey, maybe we can butter me up with a favor or two, right? Just kind of gross. So let's say responsive, not privileged. Yeah, this is a hot dog, and we're potentially going to produce this one. All right. So I can also, again, layer in any of the models. Again, this is not a ton of documents or data here, but the goal is to identify potentially, and then as the reviewers are coding and finding more, they could find more documents that potentially be harmful. Another area we could do, so let's say this is our hot document, right? This is the one that I just found. I could point that out on what we call our cluster wheel. So I click on, and it'll show me where it exists in our group of clusters. So here's the cluster wheel. I could drill in and see further. There's that crying face emoji. And so if I could, maybe if I wanted to broaden my search and get other ones that potentially are related to this, I could add this to my search or find other ones that are similar. All right. And then at any time, I can just jump back into my grid and just do a review of these 24 documents that were part of this concept. You can also score documents. So I don't have it here, I should have, but you can show the high values or scores and search by those high values or scores based on what the models are saying are potentially high value documents that would potentially be relevant in our matter. So how does so one of the questions is, how does it determine if there's an emoji? I'm going to let Dr. Mativa cover that in the in just a moment. Okay. So that's pretty much it. I guess once I identify the documents, I would come in and run a production, potentially because I'm at the law firm and say I wanted to produce these 25 documents, then I would run a production and then, here in the admin area and then produce these documents out in whatever format they need to be produced potentially, or drill down further. So this is just the beginning of what we're doing with emojis. We're also looking at sentiment analysis and things around it. Obviously that comes with challenges, as we heard from the first presentation. Sentiment is changing. I'm learning, I just learned today, I read an article, I don't know if anybody saw, is the top 10 emojis that are no longer good to be used. So Gen Z, if you're over 35, which I am, the thumbs up means something different to me than it means to other people, right? So I'm learning as well. And so trying to keep up and trying to stay ahead of that is obviously a challenge as well. So, Dr. Matiba, if you don't mind, could you expand on that a little bit and then maybe talk about where we're going next?
Sure, thank you. So so the first step is to be able to analyze emojis and be able to use them in search. And that is what Patrick just showed now. And of course, what I'm excited personally in our team is working on is how to analyze them even in more different ways, right? If we have a piece of conversation and we have an emoji, does it change the content, right? How does it change how we understand how the models understand the content? So that is, and then as Patrick said, because we are aware of the date of so many other factors which surround of the the conversation, of the context of the conversation, can we learn from that, right? So maybe the date, like is it an Android data set? What did those emojis mean back then? Right, so those are very, very exciting challenges, and the part one presentation actually shed, I think, a lot of light on that. That was great. So that is all what's kind of coming, right? A more deeper analysis of what those emojis mean, not just the presence of them, but the kind of how do we interpret them in the context. Yeah.
Thank you. Pretty much any other questions? I'm looking at the Q&A. I saw Eric's question. Are there any other questions? Or should I look in the chat? All right. So Angela and team, that's where we are now. Like I said, we will continue to add more to this content, as Dr. Matiba referenced, where something that our data science team is tackling, today and continuing.
Thank you very much. So that was Brain Space from Reveal. Very strong kickoff to our challenge, and let's turn to our next.
I don't want to nitpick, but this is Reveal 11. This is
I'm
Reveal
sorry.
11.
I'm sorry. I'm very sorry, Patrick.
It's okay. It's
Reveal 11.
Technology rolled into everything, which is what we're calling Reveal 11. So I don't want just a little different.
Very good. Thank you. So we're going to turn now to our next vendor in the challenge, TCDI. Welcome.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Angela. And thanks everybody for having us. We're excited to present this to you today. My colleague Chris Cello is going to show the screen momentarily. I'll do a quick introduction. So I'm a vice president with TCDI. We're presenting today the results of the challenge through communication intelligence. Communication intelligence is a proprietary application that Chris actually developed. And Chris, we see the speaker view if you want to flip it to get to the presentation view.
Yes, give me 1 sec.
Sure. And so yes, today we're going to show the results of this of the challenge. And well, first, if it's okay, I'd like to quickly introduce TCDI, then really highlight the emoji challenges that we tackled. TCDI has been around for quite a while. It was founded in 1988 by CEO Bill Johnson, who's still currently the CEO. And it's a growing company. They just acquired Aon Strauss-Friedberg's e-discovery team, which Chris and I were a part of. And now we're a company of 150 employees that provides all e-discovery services from forensics right through to review in the US and the UK. So anyway, we can skip ahead here. All this will be available to you after the presentation. And so today we're going to talk about the challenges that we saw in this data set and some others too. So we're going to demonstrate how emojis can be inconsistent, right? When you receive them across different devices, and how they can be interpreted differently. We'll talk about the challenge of them not being searchable, right? They will show up as special characters, maybe in say something like JSON format or Celebrate reports. We'll talk about how emoji are unsupported, right? They may not be defined by common Unicode language. So you may have to take a layered approach to get the appropriate definitions of these emojis. And then also we could touch on some emoji challenges that weren't necessarily involved in this particular data set, such as reactionary emojis, which we're seeing lots of when we're dealing with chat and text data from workplace collaboration tools like Slack and Teams. And this is, especially important when you see how people react to a certain comment, right? So being able to pull those out is important as well. So with that, I'll turn this over to Chris to explain how we fared with the challenge. And then also, I just want to mention that the results of this, when we process text and chat data with communication intelligence, can be delivered to any review platform in a common load file format. Well, yeah, we can answer any questions about that too. So Chris, please take it away.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks, Dave. Yeah, I just want to pick up what Dave said. The technology we're showing here, communication intelligence, is essentially a processing level technology, which means, we can take any type of data to, run this analysis over. And what it will ultimately be provided as is a sort of a load file. And this can be used in any modern review platform. So we're going to kind of give more of a presentation style with the understanding, it's going to reflect the actual data that was provided. But keep in mind, this, like I said, this can be run in any modern platform. We're not going to give any platform specific version of this. So yeah, a little background, when it comes to these emojis, and Dave touched on this in those earlier slides. One of the challenges that, they're very easy to see. We all see them on our phone or on a computer, but it's like, well, what are they exactly? I mean, they're not. Are they images or are they text? And there is some guidance here by the shown earlier in the previous presentation. There's an organization known as the Unicode Consortium, and they maintain an up-to-date, comprehensive database of all emojis. And from there, we know that, well, what emojis are, they are technically Unicode characters. These are special extended sets of characters that are embedded inside of text, and each one represents a different emoji. Problem here, of course, though, is that that's not, that's really just a start, but it's not that useful because, and as you can see in this samples of some of the data we received, how that is displayed, how that is internally stored, how are you going to search that? There's a lot of questions that come up with it because just being Unicode characters is just a start. So we frequently use this tool, and especially when we're dealing with emojis on chat data. So let's start right here. We had some GChat data provided between Randall and Bruce. And so we processed that, and you can see a sample of this appearing on the screen. Now, when it comes to chat data, it's a little bit more involved than, say, other forms of ESI because where, an email or a Word document, that's a document. With chats, we're kind of tasked with constructing what the native document is based on the database and rows of different messages that are exchanged. So here, and I mentioned this is available on any type of platform, we have a sample of some of the chat data that was processed here. We render it in PDF format using chat bubbles. And then you can see how on the native the emojis are displayed graphically. And right off the bat, one useful thing about this is these are rendered as embedded images based on the Unicode Consortium's standard graphical database for each emoji. When mentioned in part one, the very interesting lecture on emojis, it was mentioned how when you rely on just your browser or natively displaying these in HTML or but by your OS, whether it's Mac or Windows, that can be very inconsistent. Firefox is going to look different than Chrome, and it could be different on a Mac machine or something like that. By having these embedded as images, it means that anyone who opens this PDF will see the same thing. It's going to be consistent throughout. So everyone's going to get the same view, regardless of where, what platform, what technology that they may use to open it. So, again, we'll hit on this a little more later, but that's a very important thing because how an emoji looks may in some cases even change how they're interpreted. So right off the bat, you want to make sure you're getting a consistent experience, and that's what this is going to provide. Now, taking that same chat, an even more interesting aspect of it is, well, what about the extracted text? Because in most platforms, and in quite a few, these Unicode characters are going to be ignored by something like a DT search index. That's just not a type of thing it's going to index. It'll almost treat that like punctuation and typically just ignore it altogether. And of course, how would you create, say, a search term report just made up of all these individual characters? Cool thing here is that while we render them graphically in the native, in the extracted text, we have an internal dictionary that we keep up to date, again, referencing the Unicode Consortium's database. And we render it in the text as based on their names, as descriptive labels. And you can see that here. That same thing we were looking at a second ago. I can show those again, sorry if they're a little small. You see, say, those emojis there. When we look at them in the extracted text, we can see that they have descriptive names: zany face, face with symbols on mouth, crossed fingers. And so right off the bat, this gives you some insight into what they mean, right? You get their definition. But most importantly, these are now indexed. These can now be searched. So, now you can treat them just like you would other search terms. And that, again, gives you that consistent experience, and it gives you something familiar. Attorneys are familiar with just running standard searches in whatever their platform is, and you can get that now. And of course, I was showing chat data. We had quite a bit of email data here, and we can absolutely run everything here that we run on chat, we can run over emails as well. Typically with emails, you have an existing extracted text and a native that your processing tool generated, and you don't necessarily want to modify that. So what we do in those cases is to typically provide it as an overlay for like a supplementary text field. But the point is, you can then index them. And again, you're getting a consistent relationship. So experience. So if you're using, if you're looking at emails, if you're looking at chats, you run the same sets of searches and gain the same sets of insights. And so that streamlines the process quite a bit. So, what I just described is usually that goes quite far as it is for most users in most matters. But we know that with this matter, emojis are of particular importance. Sometimes you'll get a matter where they're not just secondary to what's being reviewed. Sometimes they take a primary form, as was the case here, where we know someone was using emojis very heavily. And for that, you might want to dig in a little bit deeper. And so we're going to show a few ways that we did that with this data set and some of the possibilities available. One other thing is fielded emojis. And so what that is basically, let's consider the difference between, okay, if it's stored as text, it's indexed, that's fine, but it's still somewhat limited. So when I say fielded, what I'm referring to use an example is, let's take a recipients field. We're all familiar with that on emails or chats, right? Now, technically, the recipients field could be seen as just a blob of text, and you could search it that way. But we know that there's a structure to it, right? It's actually like a comma delimited set of individuals. And that structure is important because a review tool isn't just going to store them as text, but it's usually going to treat them as like multi-choice or multi-object fields. And that fits into the internal database of these review platforms. And it's what allows us to do things that go a bit further, like say we want to say for a given sender, show me all the recipients that person was talking with. And we can sort of filter and visualize the data that way. This is the same concept. This takes those emojis and means they're not just parts of the text, but they are in their own field. And so maybe you can say, hey, from this individual, this person of interest, or maybe we want to know between this person and a specific another person, maybe in the context of a harassment case. Say, from these conversations, show me the emojis that were used, so I can sort of visualize them, and maybe I can dig down and filter on them. Or maybe we want to go the opposite way. Maybe instead of taking people and breaking out the common emojis, maybe we want to start with the emojis and break it out by people. Maybe we want to say, whoa, crossed fingers, huh? Or pile of poo, didn't expect to see that one in the data set. Show me which individuals were using that. So the ability to kind of jump through your data, filter it very dynamically, it can be just very helpful. And it goes further than just having them encoded in the text itself. Now, another issue. And we ran into this in the data set provided. While I mentioned these emojis are officially and should be represented as Unicode characters, that's not always going to be the case. It depends on how it was processed, what kind of technology it was stored in. If it's an email, what email client were they using? There's so many possibilities. And here's an example of a handful of the emails we had. Most of them had Unicode. Most of them were pretty standard, but some weren't. A couple of them look like this, where you'd be looking at an email and all of a sudden you're seeing these blank boxes. And instead of being Unicode symbols, they were almost like internal images. And when rendered to text, instead of seeing even a Unicode character, you're getting these links. And of course, in a review tool, typically you're not going to reach outside for these, so they may just appear as nothing. And so, okay, that's bad. But the good thing about our tool is that it's extremely flexible. It's extremely modular. So even with this issue, well, there are solutions. And so here we note that these addresses tend to not only follow a common pattern, but that last file they're pointing to, that image, that file name actually represents a Unicode symbol. It's a sort of alphanumeric display of what is in fact a Unicode character. And so we were very easily able to go into our emoji dictionary, and it's not static, it's dynamic. So not only can we add new emojis as they come when they're published by the consortium, but we can also add our own custom parsing logic. And so very easily we were able to go in and say, okay, well, when you not just look for the standard emojis, but also parse for these types of links, and then take that final file name and use it to reference its actual Unicode character. And then as a result, we were able to extract the actual emojis and put them in that extracted text overlay. And again, and the cool thing about this, so it adapted to this sort of unique challenge, but also it's consistent. Again, these same Unicode, these same descriptors are going to be the same descriptors in emails, and they're going to be the same descriptors in chats. So again, you can have the reviewers can just focus on what they're looking for, and they don't have to worry about, oh, it's gonna be different here or different here. We can really dig deep in that sense. Then, so that's the sort of flexibility of inputting things into the emoji dictionary. But what about how it is outputted? Like we were looking at those chats earlier that we generated, and we talked about using the sort of standard visual library that is provided. But, and again, this was brought up in the first part of the series, how the actual images used on different devices can affect greatly how the emojis appear, and they can even affect their meaning. There's been at least 2 very famous cases that hinge on how an emoji was displayed, one of which involved an emoji displaying as a squirt gun on one phone and an actual gun, quite menacing looking gun on another. In others, it was a matter of someone trying to fake a piece of evidence, and it was identified because they said, hey, that's not how an iPhone shows that particular emoji. Well, again, we can do that because we can customize the output of the dictionary that we use and say, well, specifically render this as a galaxy, or render everything as an iPhone, or maybe render it differently based on its device. And you see here from that same chat that we were looking at, that's a little segment of it, how then those emojis could look different, hypothetically, if you were to generate them using, say, different technologies and how they might appear. So again, something of a more advanced feature, but that's the kind of flexibility you would get to give you an idea of what's possible. And then, of course, you have analytics. And I thought, we have had a relationship with our friends at BrainSpace for a while, and I think they made some really interesting points as well. The good thing, as I said, with this is not specific to any one review or analytics platform, but by generating these load files that are very easily interpreted and very adaptable to any type of platform, you can absolutely now take advantage of those analytic platforms. As you saw earlier, you can generate concept clusters around them. You can derive information about how they fit into the corpus of data that you have. You could even use things like directional networks theoretically. We've done that before, where just like they typically, if you're familiar with that, those are typically those sort of graphs that show you who's talking with who in this sort of large galaxy looking display. That can be done with emojis, seeing what people are using what emojis and how. So it's just, again, to demonstrate some of the possibilities that there, it's not about any one specific thing. And we showed some examples of how we treated the data, but we really want to, show that there's a lot of possibilities. And among anything is that we tend to focus on making things, as it says here, it's not a one size fits all. And what we try to focus on is adaptability and consistency. Adaptability, because anyone who's worked with this stuff knows you can expect inconsistencies, you can expect things to be different. So it has to be able to adapt. And consistency, so that you're always getting that same experience. So, you're not just for this matter, but say you have certain ways that you want to review data like this when you have these challenges. Well, it would, we can have a set of solutions, and that will be the same from matter to matter. And as you've seen across devices, you get this one seamless experience. And that can just be sometimes the biggest factor of everything. So yeah, so that's an example of how we treated the data and some of the solutions we might offer. So if there are any questions, certainly, Dave or I would be happy to field them.
Thanks, Chris. It doesn't seem that any questions have popped up in the Q&A, but as your wheels churn and we go through the next presentation, we'll hang on and can respond later if they should arise.
Thank you so much, TCDI. That was wonderful. And let's now turn to our third and final vendor for the challenge, Downstream.
Hi guys, thank you very much for having us. My name is Harry Jones, Global Sales Director at Downstream. So just to give you a bit of background on Downstream, we're a digital forensics business specializing in the remote collections of mobile devices, being our niche. However, we do collect from all data sources. Since our launch in 2019, we've done circa 4,000 collections remotely. And only a handful of times we've had to go on site at the request of a custodian. So we have a piece of hardware called Remote Stream, which is about the size and thickness of your hand, which we send out, globally to custodians, whether they're at their house or at their office. And it's a bit of a plug and play system. So they get the kit out the box, plug in their iPhone, Android, any phone. And our analysts in the background will, using sort of Celebrite Oxygen and various other industry leading tools, collect the phone data. So that's a bit about us. And with the evolution of mobile devices and devices being more and more apparent in investigations, we've recently launched StreamView, which is an ECA, an analysis and investigation platform for mobile data and emails. And I'll show you a couple of screenshots just now, so you can kind of have a bit of a look and feel for what it looks like. So yeah, as I've mentioned, emails are kind of historically the way that everyone used to communicate with each other, and nowadays it's treated more as an audit trail. Very few people communicate like they do now on WhatsApp and iMessage and Signal and Telegram, like they would have done on emails in the past. So we're seeing, more and more investigations, being conducted with a mobile element and with chat communications, and that does problems. So what we've developed is a system to ingest the mobile data and emails. We've created an emoji cloud, as you can see on the screen here, and a few sort of side notes. Our emoji cloud is based on the data set that we're importing, so it's not a generic emoji cloud. So the emojis that you can see on the left hand side are based on the data set that we've imported. And if you kind of look to the middle of the screen, the emoji cloud, you can see the thickness of the emoji, so that the thicker the emoji, the more it's been used in that conversation thread, and everything within our system is clickable. So you click on the red heart and it will take you to the red hearts that appeared within that conversation. Context being everything, we have the ability to take the 5 messages before and the 5 messages after, and as opposed to clicking on those 5 individual messages, we can just take the 5 and it'll automatically tag up the 5 before and after. And obviously, emojis are being used a lot now in sexual harassment cases, drug cases, where people are not using sort of images and photos to communicate. They're actually just using emojis. I think some of the problems and challenges is around the encoding on the back end. So, for example, a red heart in iMessage has a different encoding on the back end to a red heart in WhatsApp. So when we import the data, rather than having multiple red hearts that have been picked up from iMessage, WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, so on and so forth, we actually collapse the emojis and just and create our own unique red heart, for example. So that will only appear once, making it a lot easier to review and tag and then subsequently export. So that's some of the solutions that we've come to kind of alleviate the headaches and pain points that people are seeing. So this is quite a new piece of technology we launched a couple of months ago. Yeah, you on the right hand side for the communication view, it's in bubble format, so it's exactly like you're seeing it on WhatsApp. For reviewers, it's very easy to navigate, a very friendly interface. If you don't like bubble format, then we can change that to a box format. So it's very friendly on the eye, which makes it obviously quicker and easier to navigate for the reviewer. So that's kind of where we're at in terms of our technology and what we're doing. We're ever evolving, and yeah, it's a very, very friendly interface, which has been a lot of the feedback that we've had from the market recently. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out, and we can answer those or speak to the tech team at a later date.
Thank you, Harry. Thank you, Downstream. I want to give you a special shout out. That was put together in less than 24 hours. We were able to convince Downstream to join us at the last minute for this challenge. So incredible job on very short notice. Thank you very much. Thank you to all three of our vendors who I think have done a wonderful job of showing what some of the solutions are when we're faced with data sets that include emoji, especially emoji that could have a real impact on the underlying case, the subject matter of the case itself. We do have some time for questions. So if you have questions, please feel free to put them there in the box. I was sent a few questions as well, so I'll go ahead and read those out, and feel free to jump in. Anyone who would like to answer, I will. I'll try the assignment approach if we don't get volunteers, I suppose. One question, and this actually, these are mostly going to overlap with a lot of what we heard today, but maybe we can get kind of a soundbite in response. Are the tools sophisticated enough to do sentiment analysis on emoji? And this is a compound question. Does the sentiment differ depending on language or device origin or date sent? If the message also contains text, does the analysis combine the text and emoji, or is it able to analyze them separately?
Well, I mean, I'm happy to just pipe in with ours. I think you saw, as we mentioned, this is a processing tool, but it could certainly, based on its processing, it enables it to be used in sentiment analysis, depending on what tool you're using. But more to, I think, that latter point about how it displays, we showed that we can render it both graphically using embedded images as well as through their textual name. And that is definitely one of the selling points. So hopefully that goes to that point to an extent.
Thank you, Christopher. Would either of our other vendors like to jump in?
Sure. I can just talk in generalities. As we mentioned, it's one of the things that we're working on. The task with, again, around the sentiment analysis that we do is we're taking into account a lot of factors. Of course, one of the challenges is that as over time, different emojis mean different things, right? So like as I mentioned before, a thumbs up today means something different than a thumbs up a couple of years ago. And a thumbs up to me mean something different than someone who's under 35. So yes, it's something that we are working on, and the tools can do this. And so anything else, Dr. Matiba?
I think you provided a good summary, and I like this question. And actually, this is more, I think, almost a question to all of the participants, right? Because if you have a text message, let's say, and you have an emoji, like what would you like to have? And I think the answer might be depends, right? Sometimes the emoji might, kind of have a very strong connection with the rest of the message. Maybe we should look at it together. And in other cases, they may be contradicting each other. Who knows, right? So that's really, I think, it's probably like a more complicated question. I would say then it might appear on the surface of it, but that's what makes it challenging and exciting.
Thank you. And yes, I can say I personally use emoji as sarcasm quite a lot. So I imagine that would.
That's what I was thinking too. Exactly.
Yes. Was there someone else who's speaking there?
Yeah, so we offer sentiment analysis in our platform, and obviously, as Patrick's alluded to, things do mean different things with different age groups, and culturally, emojis mean different things, and we're ever evolving and working on the technologies to bring that all together.
Thank you. Our next question kind of centers on a piece that's been of interest today, as well as in the first session of this 4-part series. And it has to do with operating systems and the differences that can create when rendering emoji. So the question is, can the tool differentiate the operating system of the phone based on the emoji? So this would not be information coming from the collection where we have information about the devices and the operating systems. I am interpreting this to mean with incoming data or incoming productions, or just, I suppose, any data set that doesn't have, we don't have the heritage of.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I know that does go to that matter that was brought in where some detected fraud, right? In that part 1, it was really interesting, an interesting case. So for this, and yeah, I think you're right, it would come in, I assume that means if you get a production from the outside or something like that, could you analyze it? And yeah, I mean, again, this is where we would harness that emoji dictionary, and we could say, well, if this is an iPhone, let's just make sure that does that emoji actually reflect how that would view based on the entry we have for, say, an iPhone or a Galaxy in our dictionary. So that would be the approach, to sort of leverage those internals for that type of an investigation.
All right. That leads to a question that I have, which is, what kind of information would you as vendors like to have from your clients when we're engaging in a project at the outset? So let's say I come to you and I say, I think we're going to have some emoji. What would you like to know beyond what devices are you going to have? Which from our last conversation, I'm pretty sure would be on that list.
Yeah, I'll jump in again first. I'm not trying to hog anything. I think what is always helpful to have is to get a sense, of their environment that they want. Where are they using review tools? Do they want to engage in a lot of analytics? And broadly speaking, what is the workflow? There's always solutions you can provide, but there's more than one way to approach these things. And so the best thing is to get a sense for, well, what would fit best with your attorneys or with your reviewers? What would be the most streamlined thing for you? And then we can design a solution that will specifically tailor to that. I think that's the biggest thing, is meeting them halfway with their approach.
And just to jump in on that as well, and in addition to workflow from our side, also the type of investigation that we're actually dealing with, different investigations pro different problems. So it's always key to understand, the type of investigation that we're being involved in from the offset, ideally.
That's right, Harry. And I would say, yeah, knowing the end goal, right? Like what is the outcome? Like, what are you looking to do? Is it just to find a search, or is it going to potentially have to be something that's produced to another party?
Thank you. Well, I think one thing I've taken away from today is I am going to start considering emoji at the outset of my cases. I want to know before I walk into a Rule 26 conference whether I have emoji That's going to be part of my data set considerations and developing not just a workflow for all my workflows, everything that's going to hit on ESI from the outset through final resolution of the case. And I will certainly be asking vendors questions based on what we've learned here today. And I will be referring back to the videos that our 3 participants are providing that will be on the series website, which I'm sure Kat will refer us back to in just a moment. And I hope you will as well. Hope to see you all at the next session, and I will turn it over to Kat.
Thanks, Angela, and the Detroit chapter and all of the participating vendors, Reveal, TCDI, and Downstream. Also, I just wanted to make a quick shout out to the summer associates at Bustle who helped put the data set together for us. We engaged in younger people to help us with the emoji challenge data set. So thanks to all of them. Again, I hope you all join us for the judges panel next month on November 10th at 11 Central. You can register for that event from our website, which you can reach through wisconsin.aseds.org. And also I tried it. You can Google emoji series and it should pop up as well. So thank you again to everybody who participated and for all of you who attended. This will be recorded and put on the website. If you have any additional questions that come up later, feel free to send it to any of us and we will make sure to get those answered. And videos from all the vendors, even those, there were some that couldn't participate due to timing constraints. So there may be some additional vendors videos that are posted on the site at a later date. So thanks everyone and happy Halloween a little bit early.